coaster.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I'm a seasonal employee with Cedar Point, so right now they don't cut me a paycheck. But I've been with Cedar Point for almost 20 years now. Actually, I'm the same age as Millennium Force, which is surprising. So, next week when you guys are out talking about your day here, you're going to mention Kings Island, and you're going to mention Cedar Point, and everybody at home is going to say, oh yeah, Cedar Point roller coasters. Yeah, and that's for the reason. Cedar Point is the amazement park. It is a place like no other. But it's also the roller coaster capital of the world, and that's a trademark saying. So, and the reason why is things like this. Corkscrew, 1976. It's not the first roller coaster to go upside down, but it's the first one to do it 3 times. So this is one of the first record-setting roller coasters for Cedar Point to put it on the map. A couple of years later, Gemini. How many people have been on the Gemini? Wow, that's good. It's actually one of my favorites. Does anybody know why it's called the Gemini? It's a racer. It's got 2 tracks, and the Gemini and Zodiac is twins. It's also John Hildebrand's favorite ride because his twin sons were born in 1978. And maybe you have read his memoirs. It was actually a contest to see if Marie was going to give birth first or they were going to open the ride first. And luckily the Gemini was a little bit late because of the blizzard they had right before then and delayed construction, so it actually came out first. A little bit weird thing about Gemini, one of the first official riders for the Gemini was George Roos. If you know any part about Cedar Point history, George Roos was 83 years old when he went on the Gemini. And he was supposed to go with Governor Rhodes of Ohio, and Governor Rhodes chickened out. Decided he wanted to go golfing instead. So, a decade later, we decided, or not we, but Cedar Point decided to break another record. And Magnum XL 200 came out. Now that is an opening day picture. You think you have long lines now? That's 4 hours of people. And people got no pass lane, no pass, no exit passes, you stood in line. 205 for the height and 72 miles an hour. So if you're going that fast down 75, you're staying with traffic. But the next one, if you're going that fast on 75, you're going to get a speeding ticket because that's 92 miles an hour. This is Millennium Force. Millennium Force is the most awarded roller coaster ever. It has more awards than anybody else. Still does. A couple more years later, decided to break a record again. Top Thrill Dragster. How many people have been there and been on Dragster without doing all the way over? Wow, a lot of rollbacks. A lot of rollbacks. My favorite time, I was working Town Hall Museum, and I was looking outside, and those of you who know Town Hall know that we look out on a courtyard, and everybody in the courtyard had stopped what they're doing and had their cameras out, and they're looking up. Sandusky's halfway between Toledo and Cleveland. We get the blimp going over it all the time, and I thought, hey, it's just a blimp, no big deal. Then I saw the antique cars ride operators next to us had stopped working their ride, and they had their cameras out, and they were looking up. So I said, okay, we got to figure out what's going on. So the people I was talking with, we all went outside, looked up, there's a dragster, and the car's balanced at the top of the ride. It's like balancing a dime on a needle. They're up there for about 20 minutes. Now, at 420 feet, you can see Canada. Well, part of it, the lake. You're just not facing the right way, you're facing the other way, so. But yeah, Lake Erie, it's not that far across. You actually can see the islands of Canada if you're up that high. But they actually sent a guy with a crowbar up and lever them over because there's a maintenance shaft that goes right up the center. So, after that, came out with some more famous rides. This is actually my favorite in the park. This is Gatekeeper. I love this ride. But they also came up with some ones that are not so famous. So how many people were even alive back in 1964? Yeah, me too. I was 4 years old. This is the Broadway trip. How many people have even heard of this? Wow. Yeah, not so famous. Was there for 1 year. It's a wild mouse inside. And it's kind of hard to see. But that right there is the pavilion. Excuse me, the arcade. And this right there is where Max Air would be. And that's the Broadway trip. It was there in 1964, and that's it. Yeah. So altogether, Cedar Point has actually had 37 roller coasters. Yeah. My favorite's the first one. Whoop. My favorite is that one, Switchback Railway. 1892, 25 feet tall, 10 miles an hour. Wow. But in 1892, you did not go that fast. No cars yet, no trains yet, no planes yet. So if you're going that fast, you're on a train. Now trains go faster than that, but you're inside a box so you feel safe. Here, you're sitting on a glorified park bench with no seatbelts, pulling a U-turn. You let go of that park bench edge, you went flying. And they had bales of hay piled at the U-turn in case you fell off. Yeah. And this is one of the things that was hard to research because there was actually not much newspaper articles or anything like that on the Switchback Railway. It was called the Fye Coasters at that time. Switchback Railway is actually not the name of the ride originally, it was a style of ride. It actually didn't get the name until the late 1940s. But back then, if you look in the newspapers for Cedar Point, yeah, look up Cedar Point Coasters. We're not even really quite sure, I've been able to find out how long this ride was actually at the park. Because they never advertised when they were removing stuff, only when they were putting stuff in. We know it was gone by 1906. That's it. And there's only one picture in existence. But, so the focus right now is on coasters. It wasn't always that way. This is new. 100 years ago. This is an advertisement, 1926. It doesn't mention rides at all. It mentions the beach, because you went to Cedar Point for the beach. Everything else is secondary. Because basically it's a beautiful beach. It's a quarter-mile long, it's good clear sand, no riptides, very safe. You're on your own, no lifeguards, but it was very safe. But you went to cool off and basically get away from the rat race. Everything else is secondary. So you went to socialize. And it's kind of hard to see. I know this is a small picture, a long distance for a lot of you. You dressed up. It was like you're going to church. I would be wearing a tie every day. I would be wearing a fedora. It's almost like you're on the Titanic, well, before it's on, but you almost like you're on the Titanic. You dressed up when you went out in public. This is one of the games areas, and you can see right there, all the ladies are in skirts and dresses. Like I said, the guys will be wearing ties. You went out in public and dressed correctly. So this was the layout of the park in 1927. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but that's Hotel Breakers. This building right there that would be where the Melt restaurant is. This is the pavilion. This is the arcade. This is the amusement circle. So this is where all the ride stuff was. So you got off a boat at the marina, walked past the Sears Hotel, walked back past a covered parking garage, and you were heading for the beach. 3 roller coasters. But again, the ads didn't even mention them. And then Town Hall and all that kind of stuff is way over here, not even developed yet. Cedar Point's actually gone through a number of different phases. The first one was before the park even opened. There was a lot of stuff going on with this peninsula beforehand. It was involved in the Civil War. Right across the bay was Johnson's Island, which was a huge Civil War prisoner of war camp. So they had guns, cannon by the lighthouse, guarding the channel. Yeah, not there anymore. Once the park opened, it was a weekend-only destination, not very well advertised. until a gentleman by the name of George Beckman got there in 1897. He made this national, he built hotel breakers, basically ran this place 100 years ago. When he passed away right before the Depression, Cedar Point went into a decline. That's its own phase. Had changed gears on how they took care of the guests. It was all about the entertainment, all about the big bands. How many people have been in the arcade building, the Coliseum? Wow, quite a few. Has anybody been upstairs? Excellent. Upstairs is the ballroom, 45,000 square feet of dancing space. You have 5,000 people dancing with a big band. Louis Armstrong, Lemon Orchestra, the whole bit, every night. And that's what kept the place open. Roller coasters is a new thing, but so forth. So, about 7 years ago, while I was working at Town Hall, I was trying to get an ultimate resource together to answer a lot of history questions. A lot of discrepancies out there, a lot of missing information, so I started putting this book together. Right now it's about 390 pages, it's about 6 pounds of paper. That's 12 by 18, that's a historical atlas. And we actually have a cover. That's the cover of the book. We actually have like a copy in the back. Maybe I want to take a glance through it. Like I said, it's 12 by 18, so it's a huge book. And we are releasing it this spring. Because next year's 150th anniversary of the park, so the timing is good. So it'll be available in the park. Also on Amazon. You can't sell a book these days without going through Amazon. And we are starting to take orders now, because right now we're doing a limited edition. It's going to be a different cover. It's going to be signed and numbered, and you're going to get it first. Any questions? Yeah. Let him do it with the microphone. Well, Town Hall actually was not originally a museum. Town Hall opened up in Frontier Town when they put the building together in '67. 1967, though, in the first couple of years, it was more of a headquarters for Frontier Town. Frontier Town back then was very secluded. Only way you get back there was by train or the Frontier lift. So it had to be very self-sufficient for that whole back area. First aid had to be back there a little bit. So Town Hall was sort of like the nerve center for Frontier Town originally. When they started planning Frontier Trail, which opened in 1971, they knew they were going to get more foot traffic, but they also didn't need it to be like a headquarters craft area anymore, so they converted that to the museum in 1970. And for the anniversary coming up next year, they are basically redoing the museum also. They're renovating it. A lot of stuff that was in there that had nothing to do with Cedar Point is gone. They have a lot of stuff in storage that is coming out, a lot of stuff nobody has ever seen for 50, 60 years. If you want details, you're going to have to ask Dwayne Clark later, because I don't know what the details are. I'll find out in April myself, so. Okay, yeah, all the way back.
We've read other books about Cedar Point's history, and they seem to dwell mostly in the past.
Right.
And I was more interested in, let's say, my generation, which would be somewhere in the 50s to now.
Right.
Are you going to, does your book talk about those rides?
Yes, actually, the book is actually in 2 different sections. The first section is based on what it is. So, for instance, if you want to know what the diameter of the Midway carousel is, it's in there. So all the carousel information is in one spot. Where it's from, if it's not there anymore, like the Frontier Town carousel is gone, where did it end up, who built it, who designed it, RPMs, who designed the horses, all that technical stuff. So this is like a textbook of all that stuff. The second half of the book is chronological, year by year, what's happened in the park. And in the 50s and 60s, there were major changes. They redid the Midway. Originally, the Midway went this way. Now it goes this way. That's an abrupt change. You're laying out your entire infrastructure. And that took 2 years to do, so that's like 2, 3 whole pages of this book is just how that change has happened. The David Francis book, which I think is what you're talking about, the Queen of American Water Places, does an excellent job of the story about how Cedar Point survived, but it does focus on 100 years ago, not necessarily the newer stuff. The main difference is David Francis is more of a storyteller than I am. I teach math during the year. I'm technical. I'm not as much of a storyteller. And David Francis would focus on the story about how the park survived the Depression, that kind of thing. I'm more into the details. So, well, for instance, David Francis will tell you that Abbott and Costello, and I'm showing my age because I actually remember those guys. Abbott and Costello were at Cedar Point during World War II, signed war bonds, and he leaves it at that. I'm actually saying in the book where they sold them, how how much they sold them for, how much did they raise. So this is more of a research type based thing. But yeah, it's more evenly spaced over the time period. So, and again, if you want, you can go peruse through the book because we have a copy in the back. Any other questions? Yeah. Well, we're getting distractions now.
How long have you worked on the book? Like years or?
Years. We're talking about over 100,000 newspaper articles that I've gone through. Weeks alone in each of the different area museums. We actually started this project about 7 years ago. A lot of interviews with local people. There's a lot of different history area in Sandusky. The Maritime Museum, the Carousel Museum, the Hayes Museum in Fremont, gone through all of their archives. But yeah, this has been a long project. I mean, you can ask my wife how much time I've spent on the computer, tons and tons of bandwidth. But yeah, there's a lot of history in this. So, and if you buy the book, be prepared for a quiz at the end of class because it's pretty heavy. So yeah. What brought the coaster to Jumbo Jet to Cedar Point? I'm not actually sure why Cedar Point purchases and builds why they do. That's basically what the Jumbo Jet was almost something you could buy out of a catalog, like the Wildcats are. And somebody in upper management decided that would be a good choice, and it was. Had some issues. Not sure. Yeah. Jumbo Jet was an interesting coaster. Was only there for about 6 years, 72 to 78, and it's actually still in existence. It's over in Europe now. But yeah.
What's the price put on?
Okay, yeah. Unfortunately, the price tag is up there because the crane cost is way up there. We're talking about 6 pounds of paper. This is the same size as the National Geographic World Atlas, and on Amazon they're selling those for $200 a piece. We're keeping this as low as possible, but yeah, it's a $100 book. Yeah, it's up there. And we're doing everything we can to get the price point down, but unfortunately, yeah, it's an expensive book. So the retail's $100. So.
Is there a next project after this one? Anything
Yes.
more specific, maybe? Or
Nobody's ever done a biography of George Beckman. David Francis started one, but he unfortunately passed away before he actually completed it. Nobody has done a railroad book on the Cedar Point Railroad specifically, which would be very cool. And obviously on this is going to get updated every year because the park updates every year. On the 11th next year, or next week, Cedar Point's making an announcement about what's coming up for next year. They're doing that on the 11th. And that information in my book, because my book's not going to the printer until Christmas. So the day I send this to the printer, it's going to be updated. Other projects, I'm not sure yet. I mean, we actually formed our own publishing company to do this. Like I said, I'm not technically an employee of Cedar Point. Year-round Cedar Point is not the publisher. They're just going to carry it in the stores. And they gave me access to their archives, and their planning and design department helped out quite a bit with the graphics. So, we good? All right, stop back to the back of the booth if you want to pick your way through this stuff. Thank you.